Every major group that grades the fairness of congressional maps gives your state an F, represents a nearly perfect model for everything that can go wrong with redistricting. And I guess the question is, you talk about preserving democracy. How do you preserve democracy if you're using the same tactics that you've criticized Texas Republicans for?
But as I say, what they're talking about is a distraction.
Wait, did this journalist just actually ask a reasonable, logical question of how can you be against something that you yourself are guilty of? Did I really just see and hear this journalist do that? Let's check.
Every major group that grades the fairness of congressional maps gives your state an F, represents a nearly perfect model for everything that can go wrong with redistricting. And I guess the question is, you talk about preserving democracy. How do you preserve democracy if you're using the same tactics that you've criticized Texas Republicans for?
But as I say, what they're talking about is a distraction.
Yes. NBC actually just committed a random act of journalism. There's hope yet! Hi, I'm Pastor Marty, and this is the one, the only, you've heard about it, now you get to experience it for yourself, moi, the afternoon drive. Absolutely nothing else like it or me anywhere online. I promise you, this is not a talk podcast. This is a thought podcast. I could care less if I make you mad, as long as I make you think. Hey, please like and share this video. It is literally the only way that we can get the word out that we're here, because YouTube would like to pretend we don't exist. But if you will share the links to this video to your social media platforms, it's the only way that we get the word out that we're here. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel and then smack the bell so that you get the notification of all of my rants, my ravings, my undeniably flawless reasonings. Hey, welcome to the afternoon drive. Well, as we enter week number 2, that the Democrats from the state of Texas have migrated to Illinois, California, New York, refusing to report for their jobs in the Texas state legislature so that there can't be a quorum present so that the Republicans can, introduce and bring in gerrymandering. In other words, redistrict. Is it designed to protect Republican seats in the Congress and even create more? Yes. You know where we learned it from? Democrats.
How can gerrymandering both be a threat to democracy and also the way to save it?
Well, there's no question that gerrymandering is a threat to our democracy. It allows politicians to pick their voters as opposed to citizens choosing their representatives.
Barack Obama's, muscle, the arm, the former AG, Eric Holder. And this whole gerrymandering thing, this is awful. She points out, but you guys did it. But this is a threat to democracy. But there's a but coming.
But we are now in a situation where we find ourselves where authoritarian moves are being made by the White House through various states, Texas most prominent among them, and there has to be a response to that. What I've said is that we have to protect our democracy now if we ultimately want to be able to save it.
Told you there was a but coming, and this is about as helpful as the guy who says, I love you so much, I don't want anybody else to have you, but because you don't want me, I'm going to kill you. We've all seen that psycho plot movie or bad TV show before. And that's exactly what they're saying here now is, in order to save democracy, we've got to kill it with the very method that we're objecting to. But again, this is just off the rails. And now you've got the governor of Massachusetts coming out and saying that they're going to go ahead and gerrymander to the point that no Republican will ever be elected to anything ever again. They pretty much mission accomplished that in the state of Massachusetts. In fact, do you know how many Republicans serve in the U.S. Congress, House of Representatives from the state of Massachusetts? I'll give you a second to Google it or ask Siri. I'll just go ahead and tell you. None. Zero. They already have zero Republican representation. And hey, that's what Governor Pritzker from Illinois. You know, he and Chris Christie, they look alike. They got the same political views. One calls himself a Republican. One calls himself a Democrat. They're both what they are, obese dirtbags. But that said, we're not supposed to point out that what they're doing, we're not allowed to do, but they actually invented it. And it started in Massachusetts. This little picture right here, the redistricting of Massachusetts, which at the time, political editorials pointed out that it looked like a dragon that was putting its clutches onto Massachusetts, refusing to let go. This happened in 1812. And it got its name gerrymandering on behalf of the governor of Massachusetts at that time, Governor Jerry, who was a Republican Democrat, which is actually the Democrat Party of today, because the Democrat-Republican Party was the party of Thomas Jefferson. These were the liberals of the era. So it was the Democrats who invented the concept in 1812 of redistricting. You know, take a town over here that's pretty much 90% Democrat and have that town's district ooze in over here where we got a couple of other towns that are about 80% Republican, but there's not enough there to offset if these 90% of Democrats were then also included into their district. Gerrymandering. And the Democrats invented it. And they do it better than Republicans. And Pritzker, he doesn't like the fact that people keep pointing this out, that they're guilty of the very thing that they are trying to create rebellion in the hearts of America to stand up against these evil Republicans and what they're trying to do in Texas. And again, NBC, same reporter, has another random act of journalism.
Every major group that grades the fairness of congressional maps gives your state an F, represents a nearly perfect model for everything that can go wrong with redistricting. And I guess the question is, you talk about preserving democracy. How do you preserve democracy if you're using the same tactics that you've criticized Texas Republicans for?
But as I say, what they're talking about is a distraction.
Now, what exactly did Krispy Kreme Jr. here mean when he said, this is a distraction?
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
In other words, it's a distraction to point out that the very thing he's griping about and is saying is undemocratic, like Eric Holder, is the very thing that they are all doing and have done and will continue to do. You can't put, that's a distraction. That's a distraction. That's like a wife walking into her home and catching her husband with another woman, and she says, how dare you bring this woman in my house? I go, whoa. That's a distraction. Have you seen the price of groceries this week? Wait, what? And that's exactly what Pritzker, Hochul, by the way, I've heard recently that Hochul and Pelosi will not talk to each other. That's Hochul, the governor of New York. Man, she's ugly, isn't she? Apparently she and Nancy Botox Pelosi are not talking to one another because apparently the same guy that designed the McDonald arches also, draws their eyebrows on every day. And, Pelosi thinks that he should be exclusively just doing her eyebrows and not Hochul's too. It's funny, though, that Cruella DeWittmer, the governor out of Michigan, has stayed relatively quiet on this, but she has made a couple of trips to the White House, and the media loves to point that out. So I don't know what kind of aid and funding and favor she needs from the Trump administration, but right now she's trying not to ruffle any feathers within the Trump administration. Just thought I'd point that out. And the polling is showing that the American people are not buying this Democrat argument. Then Gavin Newsom had to throw his 2 cents in there. And here's the guy that basically let, Palisades burn to the ground. And now they're not releasing any of the money so that people can rebuild their homes. And I told you this 6 months ago. And of course, almost a year ago. And I was called a conspiracy theorist over it. That this was the same thing they did in Hawaii. This was the way to get all those people out of there. Leave it sit so that the people get discouraged because they can't rebuild. And then certain people like Newsom and his cronies and who they handpick, they will then divide up the land and they will make money. They want to build a lot of low-cost apartments in there, build up more tax base. It's stealing property after a natural disaster that might not have happened had the reservoirs had water in it, but they just somehow magically were empty. That's the Democrats who Beto O'Rourke, there's a term I want to call him right now, but you can't say that. You don't care if I call him a Mick over his Irish descent, but I can't use the other word that sounds like Mick but starts with a sp. Beto O'Rourke, yes, the Irish Latino. He said, we Democrats, we got to start doing what the Republicans doing, which is like cheat with this gerrymandering, because we're always the ones that are polite, and we're like the kids in school that color in the lines and follow the rules. Wait, did he really with a straight face just say that? Because nobody cheats like the Democrats do. And they have taken gerrymandering and redistricting to this level, especially in places like California, where they have all but ensured Republicans can never be elected again. And now you're giving us a to attitude because Texas is going to do it. And then you're terrified other red states will do it too. Well, what's good for the goose is good for the mander.